it's been an effort to try to get the word out on all the things changes that are happening. We've been trying to use many different platforms like Nextdoor, Facebook forum, city website, email blasts, and these type of calls. So we're hoping to get the word out. I'll let you know just an update on some of the many things we've been trying to do to help small businesses in the community make it through this tough time. Obviously, revenues are way down for small businesses, and it's been tough. There's been some federal help and payment protection programs and various programs, but there's also been other money that's channeled from the federal government through the county and then down to cities. And so we've been trying to quickly move any of the funds we might receive from those programs out into the community and make it available. And so we did have a grant through our housing authority of roughly $400,000 that was offered about a month ago and quickly oversubscribed and all given out. Since then, we just recently opened up a week ago through that money that came through Supervisor Steele that was $900,000 for grants that could be available to small businesses in the form of $10,000 grants, so you don't have to repay it. So we had a whole fast scramble to pull together a program, application process, selection process, and a way to get these funds out quickly. And so closing last night at 5 p.m. was the 1 week opening of that program. We had over 300 applicants for the 90 grants that are available. And so Mayor Cheryl Brothers will be available on Friday to do help with the lottery picking. And we'll be picking the top 90 that are successful from that program. And then the plan will be to contact those businesses over the course of next week and try to get that money out as quickly as we can.
I think we'll pick beyond the 90 a little bit, just in case there's a problem with the 90 that they are going through a qualification period now, but in the event that some of them fall out of the system for some reason, we'll pick a little beyond the 90, so we're still ready to cut those checks and get them out as soon as possible.
One interesting, that it's a good point, because if some of the criteria doesn't get met, then we'll have to move down the list. Interesting part of that funding is we are split as a city into two different districts with the supervisor's offices. So from Warner South is District 2, which is Supervisor Steele. And so these funds were only for businesses in that area. So Supervisor Doe decided to have their own program, which he's administrating through a different process. So businesses north of Warner will have an opportunity to apply for grants. It's that system's still getting put together. It's probably going to be closer to July 15th till they're up and running. And then they'll have an application process for those businesses to apply. They will be $10,000 grants as well. They have a smaller pot of money. It may only be 50 grants that they can do, I believe, for that group, but it's a small area of town. But do stand by if you have a business in that area or know someone there. There is help coming to that group, but it's on a whole different timeline. And we should have all our funds, designated to people by next week and then funded shortly after that. So we're trying to go fast. And
it's my understanding in District 1 that there will be a small portion of his funding that will go to nonprofits. So any nonprofit that is based in District 1 can apply to, but their portion of that fund is fairly small, but there is some options.
Yeah, and more to come on that program through Supervisor Doe's office. We'll try to funnel any information we get on that and post it on our website, but we won't be administrating that piece of it. In addition, the city has set up and gotten permission from council to set up a loan program as another option for businesses that don't get the grant or aren't successful for the grant. And it's being worked on. We're going to use the same Small Business Development Center group to administrate it. And between Maggie and our finance director, we're going to set that up with that group probably over the course of next week. And it would be in the form of loans that would need to be repaid of up to $10,000 for small businesses in Fountain Valley. And so we'll work on getting all that information out, how to apply. And because it is something that has to be repaid, I believe the terms will be 2% payable over 3 years. So we're trying to make it very generous in that sense. But it is city money that we do have to get repaid. And that would be another option for anybody that needs that. And so stay tuned for that option for people. And that will be available anywhere in Fountain Valley. It won't be a District 1 or 2 thing. It will be everywhere. And we have 500,000 designated in that pot, which could be 50 groups could take advantage of that. That's another option. So let's see, what else do I have on my list here? So that's some of the community benefit that we're doing. If you have a restaurant or even a business, council recently passed the ability to use outdoor spaces around businesses for your business. So if you had a restaurant and there'd be an opportunity to look at expanding your dining areas beyond your normal indoor space out into possibly even the parking spaces in front of your business. If you had displays for a regular business, not a restaurant, you wanted to look at putting some of that product outside during the day, you have to bring it back in afterwards, but we're looking at temporary opportunities for people to promote their businesses, knowing that there's a limit to how many people can fit inside the buildings right now. So while that's going on, we just passed that. So it's a permit you would need to get from the city. So you apply at the city, they'll help, so our staff will help you go through whatever's needed as far as we do have to make sure things like fire escapes and ADA accessibility, and if you're going to move tables out into the parking area, it has to be coordinated with your property. So if you're at say a commercial center, you can't just decide to take over 10 spaces in front of your restaurant and take out your neighbor's parking because we'll have a fist fight going on. So the property manager would need to vet and work out all those details, and then the plan would come with their signature saying this has been agreed to by the surrounding businesses. So there's a few quirks and things, but we do want to be supportive. The alcohol licensing folks have extended the ability for a licensed restaurant to temporarily be able to serve outside when they normally wouldn't be. So there's different groups are trying to band together to make businesses successful when they have to expand because they can't get as many people in the building. So those are another program that's available. And I think that's and one other reminder for anyone who is opening indoors that there is a process for having a checklist and a self attestation that needs to be done to make sure you've got a plan for COVID and you've got all the pieces you need. City's not the boss of that. That's really through the state's COVID website, and I'll give you that website address if you are a business owner and you want to make sure you're following all those rules. It's covid19.ca.gov, and they have a ton of information, and they have the current rules as to how to operate your business. And if it has different types of industries. So if you're in a restaurant, 25%, here's the rules, here's what you need posted. If you're in a different kind of industry, look to that website of giving you all that direction.
Good.
Okay, so that's the small business side of things. I can give you an update on our general budget and the services and how COVID's impacted. Are there any questions on that piece before we move to the next phase of this conversation on the loans, the grants, or any other help to small business?
Anybody, hold on. Just raise your hand or put up your hand signal if anybody has a question. I will ask real quick, Rob, on the outdoor seating for restaurants and the ABC approval of that, do they have to have it fenced in or is it open? I know that sometimes that's an added expense to put that up.
Our planning department will work with you, but you will have to have a way that you're protecting your people in chairs from the traffic going by. So there will need to be something. Planning department will work with you. So whether it needs to be fenced on 4 sides or is it just making sure we're keeping people safe so that you don't have a driving car clip someone, but we'll work through that with you.
I think the question was about serving
serving liquor.
I know a standing requirement has been, it had to be fenced. You couldn't have it where people could wander in and out. Frankly, I don't know the answer to that, but it's probably on that website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could find out.
We can find out. I'd say if you have an interest, contact our staff. They're quickly becoming experts in all the rules. But I would say that I think there's a chance that on the alcohol side, they've definitely been much more flexible than they've ever been in the past for this temporary time. So there's a chance it won't be the same fencing requirements that there was for this temporary period. But again, we do have city rules and things to deal with as far as safety from traffic, especially because that's a worry we have is somebody just leaning back in their chair in the line of traffic and getting clipped or something would be a really bad day. So
yeah, and the fencing requirement, depending on what the alcohol board requires, could be as simple as some temporary posts with do not cross this line tape. I don't know if it has to be an actual structure. Those can actually be rented too. Okay. If you've gone to Summerfest, and I know all of you have, we surround rides with those. I think what are they called?
Stanchions.
Yeah, and they can be rented.
Yeah.
You don't have to purchase them. But we'll see what the alcohol board requires.
Great, thank you. Vince, you had a question, you're unmuted.
Oh, thank you. Cheryl.
Yes.
When talking to the businesses that you have been talking to, are they having a major concern of survival with everything that's going on? I'm sure it's a general concern, but what's their feelings?
Well, I'll be honest. We've been talking to businesses who appear to be surviving and are really excited about being able to open, even under very limited conditions. They're just excited about getting back to work. One interesting thing with food service is places that can accommodate to-go food have been working this whole time. So they're in a little bit different category. The dine-in category, I think, are going to have an upfront expense because they've all had to unload their refrigerators and freezers. I know many restaurants just unplugged all those things and gave away all the food they had, mostly to Waste Not OC. So it was reused in areas that it could be donated, but they're going to have a lot of restocking to do in the beginning. So we haven't heard from anyone yet that's struggling with that. I'm curious to see in the applications for the grants how many are food industry.
Yeah. Thank you, Vince. Does anybody else have a question for this portion of the program? If so, let me know. And if you think of something later, you are more than welcome to ask later. I'm going to take a brief moment to, I don't know. Oh, there. I'm going to take a brief moment and show a video from our sponsor, SoCal Gas.
Can you do anything with the volume memory?
And excavation community to be extra cautious when digging. It is a law to contact Underground Service Alert at 811 at least 2 working days before starting any project that involves digging. When residents or contractors contact 811 before they dig, utility companies will mark the locations of their underground lines to prevent them from being damaged. 811 is free to use, and it can help you dig safely. Hitting a utility line is serious. It can lead to injury, death, service outages, or costly repair bills. Please help us keep families and essential businesses safe and open during this period. If you're planning to dig, contact Underground Service Alert by calling 811 or by visiting california811.org. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very interesting to know. I had never heard of that, so I'm glad we were educated today. Oh, wow. There we go. So let's keep going with the next portion of our program, and we will learn some more about our citywide stuff. I'm going to unmute Rob and Cheryl. Sorry, my computer is super slow today. There we go.
Memory, if I could, before we jump into that, while I was listening to the gas company give their bulletin on 811, which is a great community benefit. Southern California Edison, I heard recently, has up to 3 incidents every day with Mylar balloons getting tangled up in their lines, which actually knocks that line out of service. Up to 3 a day in their service territory. That's a lot. I was driving past Mile Square Park yesterday and noticed a bunch of Mylar balloons from graduation up against a fence. So I parked, got out of my car, took them home, popped them all, tied them up, and threw them in my trash. So if you see them wandering around the city, because they do move around, do everyone a favor, pick them up, treat them appropriately, and throw them away.
Very good. Thank you, Cheryl. I remember seeing a video of what happens when a Mylar balloon hits one of those poles, and it is very serious.
Yeah, not good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I personally saw one in my backyard. Neighbors 2 doors down were having a party. I believe it was graduation or a swim party of some type. Mylar blue got up and that just blew up. Sparks everywhere, lines came down, and yeah, it wasn't very pretty.
Not good.
No.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
Okay, thanks, Memory. So just giving you an update of where the city's been at for this COVID period. We all kind of found out about COVID and learned about it and figured out how does this impact our service. And so we got various impacted, just like businesses, with directions from the governor and the county telling us to shut certain services down. For instance, our senior center was one of the first places we had to close. So that had a huge impact to our very important senior community. And then what do we do without those services? And we had to close our rec center, our parks we kept open, but our tennis courts were shut down at the Mile Square Center, basketball courts, no soccer, no baseball. So that was, of course, a huge impact, and us trying to figure out how to handle that. And then from our fire service, they, of course, the majority of what they really do is medical service. So here we have our city staff or firefighters having to show up at homes with someone that might have COVID, and that might be why they're picking them up. How do we keep them safe? So having to figure out new protocols and then our police officers are meeting all sorts of interesting people at all times, day and night. And do those people have COVID? And how do we keep our officers safe? So we've had to work through all that. It's been an adventure. The nice thing is we have a really good county community of surrounding cities. So we do a lot of ideas sharing and best practices, which helps us not all have to invent things completely from scratch. But from our fire department, for instance, if in the past where they might get a call, we do have our dispatchers ask, what's the nature of the call? If someone's, cut themselves, it's one thing. If they're having shortness of breath, or they're having anything that could be possible COVID, then we have instead of 4 firefighters going in at once to the home, we'll have one dress up with goggles, gown, gloves, and mask. They'll go in single by themselves, assess the situation, make sure they're caring for the person. If they see that it's not possibly COVID related, the rest of the crew can come in. If not, the one person will handle it, bring it out. If anybody else needs to assist, they'll glove up, gown, do everything. We'll have the second person in. So we're trying to be safe, still care for people, but we're learning new techniques to try to do that. So that's been an interesting thing. Our senior center is an example where we really took the challenge to say, the senior center is more than a building. And so we've been doing a lot of things with our staff, and volunteers to make sure we're calling all our seniors every week. We're having a meal program that has expanded from, we had two meal period, Tuesday, Thursdays, we'd have 50 people each day, so 100 meals a week, and was what we used to do in person. And since that time, we partnered with Meals on Wheels, and we now have a Thursday traffic jam we start with the senior center. If you ever go by Thursday between 10:30 and 12, or 12:30, and it's a jam of people. They all come through on drive-through. There's sets of frozen meals. You can get a stack of between 5 and 7 meals one time a week. And we have an assembly line, and we're firing through the windows, giving everybody meals for the entire week. And we're up to over 1,800 meals in a week from going from 100. So there's been a lot of work to find ways to still serve our community in new, unique ways that are safe. And I know this, I think it's next week, they're going to do a Zooming for seniors kind of event where we're going to have entertainment and sort of a community feel event with the staff, presenting that to our senior center to try to give them sort of a replication of their lunches that they would have once a month, and try to do that in a new way. So there's been a lot of creative attempts to try to do that. If you come to our city hall, which we've reopened a few weeks ago, you'll see you got to queue up. There's limits to how far many people can come in, and you'll see a plastic clear vinyl sheet that covers from the ceiling right down to the reception counter all the way across City Hall to allow the customer to be on one side and the city staff on the other in a way that has a barrier. You can still hear through it. And you do need a mask when you come in the building, even though they're not required outside. We do ask for our business they're inside, and our staff will be wearing a mask. So we're trying to find a way we can still have face-to-face safe interactions for service. And the interesting thing is, since we've been open, our building department it's as busy as it's ever been. So the encouraging thing is to see a lot of businesses, not just homes, but businesses, people being willing to say, I want to get open, I want to finish the renovations, I want to invest. And there's not as much fear as I might have thought, where people are like, I'm holding off for 6 months to see. So we have a lot of things still rolling, a lot of optimism. So that's a good sign for the future. But it's been a challenge, and I think we've found ways through to get service out to our community and keep it rolling. I'll give one example on the recreation side. We weren't able to keep all our facilities open, but we did have a tennis court down on Ellis Park. And at the time, the governor hadn't said tennis courts themselves had to be closed. It's just you have to make sure social distancing is happening. And so we set it up with signage, and we tried to say, if you orderly sign up and you make sure you're only with your group. If you're doing singles, you can be with someone different, but if you're going to play doubles, you need to be with a family member. And technically it should work. Make sure you clear out the entrance. If you're coming in, the other person step back. Kind of gave them all the guidelines. We were having some compliance, but some difficulties with people kind of all gathering and waiting too close together. We got some complaints. So we said, well, the easy thing is to close the facility, but we have people with nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. And this is a public recreation place that is really kind of the last resort of where you could have some kind of recreation. So we retooled existing rec staff that really didn't have regular work, and we got them, so we had staff at the park during the day, 7 days a week actually. We had different shifts, but they were there monitoring the use, handling a sign-out sheet, making sure everyone complied, but in a way that was safe, and we didn't have to close the facility. And we used other rec staff to do it 2 times a day. They would go and do a park patrol and go to every single community park and our sports park and educate anyone that wasn't doing the 6-foot distancing and tracking use and working out to find a way to work with the community to be safe and still keep things open rather than just closing. Surrounding cities, a lot of them just said, you know what, it's easier just to close everything. And it's like, that doesn't seem like the right answer to keep things going. So we tried to be creative and try to keep things open. And now, fortunately, the governor's starting to let things open, and we'll expand beyond that. We do have practices can happen for kids now in sports fields. So this next week, you'll start seeing soccer and baseball practices. Can't play regular games. So we're inching our way back. But it's been a journey, and then from city services, from the police department as well, trying to stay safe where they wear masks. and they've got protocols. We have a cleaner going through their building once a day to clean off door handles and making sure it's safe. So we're finding new ways to keep service going and keep people safe.
One of my earlier mayor's updates was with the fire department, and if you want to see kind of a live reenactment of what they do on a call, they covered that in one of the early mayor's updates. And then I had a later following meeting here in City Hall with the police chief to go over what their protocols are.
And I'll add that City Hall's open, our rec center is open with limited services. Senior Center not open at this point. We're waiting for, it's probably going to be the last stage where Senior Center can open, and we will wait for direction from the county and state before we do that. Although we have seniors every day batting down the door. We have some of them willing to sign liability waivers saying, I'll take the chance. I've had a good life, and if I gotta go, I gotta go, but I gotta get in that center. So we're holding back the storm, but it's good. We will get back to that. One question that did come up in that people have asked is, city finances. You hear some cities around us that are struggling. We certainly have a large hit because sales tax is a big part of how we make money, as well as TOT, which is off of hotel room rentals. So for next fiscal year, starting July 1st, we predict $5.1 million in deficit that is the reduction in the revenue. So that's a big number for a $58 million budget. Actually, of general fund, it's about overall 16% of our regular general fund for next year. So that is something that in some cities, that kind of hit is resulting in either staffing reductions or furloughs. Fortunately, some great planning that's happened in the city with city council being conservative and our financial team being sort of proactive. We've put money away in reserves for rainy days. And we also have, of course, Measure HH, which came in 2016, which has been a great ability for the city to finance, keep the lights on. And that money has been available for helping in this situation, but as well as filling up those reserves. So we are dipping into a little bit into our reserves for the coming year. We were making extra payments to our CalPERS debt. If you've ever heard of the CalPERS pension, there's a big sort of debt that each city has to pay. We were putting $2 million a year extra to try to pay off the debt. So this coming year, we won't make the extra payment, we'll still make the regular payment. And then we've got, internally, we've found $1 million that we're gonna shrink our budgets without having to impact staffing, but just travel and other things. So we're finding $1 million there. And we're also reducing the capital projects. So we were going to do some renovations at our police station. We're going to do some renovations at a fire station. We're going to put those off. And so that's where we're finding our $5 million, so that we won't impact staffing levels, but especially we won't impact services. So when we're allowed, you'll see the senior center fully open. You'll see the rec center fully open. You're going to see the fully staffed police and fire departments. So you're not going to see the impact as a resident. And we'll get through this in a way that's financially stable, but also not impacting service. So that's really the path forward.
Yeah, to put Fountain Valley's reduced income in a little bit of perspective, the mayor of Anaheim has said several times to the mayors, all the mayors in Orange County who want to do a Thursday night Zoom meeting, and Anaheim is losing in revenue $1 million a day in revenue. So they have tough decisions to make.
They're all about TOT tax, right? I mean, that's
and all their big venues that
Yeah.
can't occur,
Yep.
conferences that can't happen, so on and so forth. But so we're, to begin with, a little better off because we don't build our budget on those big event venues, and we have reserves. Reserves in 2007 and 8 is what got us through that for a long time, but eventually we saw the need to pass Measure HH. And thank goodness our voters did pass that, because without that, we we wouldn't be in the position we're in and able to offer the services that we do. In regards to the recreation part, I just came from my cable TV board meeting. They have a bank of summer concerts in their vault. And so for the month of July, they'll be rerunning concerts. They'll be running them on their channel 3. I haven't had the conversation with the city yet to see if we're gonna try and get those broadcast on our website. But it will give the community an opportunity to experience the summer concerts without actually having a live one.
Very good. Well, thank you guys very much for those important updates. I am so glad to hear that our city staff isn't going to be affected, and neither will our first responders, the police, the fire. That is what, in part, what makes Fountain Valley such a nice place to live. And I'm glad to see that those will be intact. Does anybody have any questions for Cheryl or Rob? Okay, go ahead, John.
So I'm wondering if there's a spitball for when that 4th phase will be opening. Any idea?
I would just say that when I have a regular twice a week call now with CEO Frank Kim. So he's the CEO of Orange County with our city manager of Orange County. And so he has more inside knowledge than we get, us regular folks get. But at one point 3 weeks ago, it was like, well, phase 4 might be in October, the way things were slowly moving along. And then all of a sudden, I think in the last 2 weeks, we've hit a fast gear where the governor is ramping very quickly. And so, I don't have the exact date, but I would say it's been surprising the pace we're moving on, and the fact that, we're basically almost every business, including massage parlors and nail salons, can open this week. Friday, that's one of the last kind of groups, and they've expanded large gatherings to 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quickly moving down. If they get 100 people, if they expand it to 300, pretty soon phase 4 is, larger venues. You're almost there. But so I would say if the numbers don't spike, we could be seeing it in, end of July or August. If we see spiking, then all bets are off. But at one point I thought it was October. I'm feeling more like by summer, later this summer, we're going to see phase 4. But if the numbers spike, that changes things.
Yeah, and I agree. It's interesting to watch the numbers because they depend largely on testing. And the more testing you do, the more numbers you're likely to find. But I've also heard in Orange County that the testing numbers, the number of tests have gone down. So there's so many moving parts to this. And I think the governor, the county, everyone is realizing that people are ready to get back to some kind of normal. And if they don't open the door quicker, there's just going to be a revolt, and people are going to do what they want. They'll do what they want based on their own risk level.
Yeah.
So I think maybe sooner than they originally thought.
And as someone who went to the beach on Sunday, that was phase 4. There's hundreds of thousands of people crammed all beside each other, no masks, it looked like any other summer. So in some places it's already happened.
Yeah.
Rob, can I ask a quick follow-up question on what you had said a moment ago, because it pertains specifically to the chamber, and that is, did you say that gatherings of up to 100 person are allowed?
That's my understanding. In
Yes.
like churches, I think it applies pretty well everywhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great news for the chamber.
I would check on covid19.ca.gov
Yeah.
just to confirm, but that's my understanding.
It's from my understanding of this, it's up to 100 if you can be socially distanced.
Yeah.
I mean, some church
Big enough.
spaces are so huge that they could easily fit 100 people. some are not. So it's going to depend on how many you can get into that space or how much parking area you have that you could move out into. And that's another option.
And that is the same whether it's indoor or outdoor?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
Looks like
is it
Kathleen
has a question. I had to squint to
Yeah.
see her name.
Let me unmute you. There, my computer's so slow today. There we go.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Just a thank you for being so vigilant and also being good role models. I saw an interview, Cheryl, that you did with someone, and though you two were in the same space, you were about 8 feet apart. Both of you were wearing masks. And I think we as business people and as leaders need to be good role models. I like what you've said about how you're taking care of the police and fire department. I know Anaheim has a fire station with one wonderful fireman who may not make it because one fire station got hit with COVID, and they don't even know how with tracing exactly how it happened, but once it happened, it happened. So being careful. With that said, I've never been quite clear. I know there's the county level mandate about now it's should for masks instead of must, which I personally disagree with, but they've made that statement. That filters down to county, but at city level, are you able to then kick it up a notch and say, no, we would rather be more cautious? What are you able to do at city level versus county level?
Rob may want to talk to that, but I'd like to speak to it too, because I am in touch with a lot of other cities. First of all, how on earth would you ever enforce that? We don't have enough boots on the ground to actually enforce it. So it kind of comes down to peer pressure, if you will.
Yeah. And where you're going to take your business based on how that business is operating too.
True. But as I said, there is a revolution pending. There are just so many people that don't want to wear a mask, won't wear a mask, will continue to go out. And frankly, I don't know how a city would deal with that. I don't even know how the county would deal with that, and how you would, excuse the word, but how would you police that? So I think our general public is kind of driving that decision to make it optional. And the reality is, if you feel at risk, you can still take your own personal precautions, although most masks are not designed to protect you. They're designed to protect others around you. But you can certainly stay at home, shop online. We do grocery shopping for our seniors that can't get out. So there are other options if you feel strongly that you need to protect yourself. Then it comes down to that now. You need to protect yourself.
Well, I have already heard there's a handful of restaurants and bars that have had to close, and obviously temporarily again, but they've had to close because their employees are at risk. And I would hope that businesses, and especially partly with your good example, because I do believe that peer pressure and example is good, but these business owners need to understand they need to protect their employees. And just as you're wanting to protect our police department and our fire department, and I'm sure Anaheim wanted to as well, but it just blew up at one fire station. And so we need to still be respectful of how serious this is. And so I didn't know, how much you could do. And I agree, it's partly peer pressure. And again, I want to thank you for being good role models on this, because I think this is going to be at least a year thing. I mean, the flu, even with the flu vaccine, has never been eradicated. So this may be trickling down. It may, migrate to a lesser version, but we're going to be dealing with this for a while.
I agree. Even with the vaccine, there are people that will not get vaccinated.
Right,
So,
right. Or it mutates to another strain and then we're back to ground.
Yeah, and it is a tough question. A couple cities have attempted to put their own mandates different from the state or the county. The difficulty, as Mayor Brothers mentioned, is the policing side. We don't have enough police to be at, every store in town, every restaurant, every park where somebody doesn't wear a mask. And then if we want to have our officers cite them, what law are they connected to? Like, we don't have anything in our normal code or the county code or the state code to fine somebody. And then is that the first, like, someone says, well, I don't want to pay it. Are we going to invest money to pursue them in court for a face mask? So the enforcement is really, even, no matter what you want to do, it's really hard for us to do from a police perspective. And we don't have the resources, but we also don't have the laws to back it. So then it becomes a laughable sort of tear up, forget it, and then it doesn't really have any bite. So really we depend on the state to set those kind of laws, and then we can charge you against that, but we don't have any real tough laws at a city level that we can enforce at that level.
Well, and private businesses can, and hopefully by example as well, do it. I mean, how many decades have we had the no shirt, no shoes, no service sign? And that was not a law.
Yeah.
It was a health issue. No shirt, no shoes, no service. And so I have actually seen some businesses, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. So.
Right.
And if you come to City Hall right now, you need a mask. And so
Exactly.
we can do that as an example. And if you don't have a mask, we'll give you one. So, we're not trying to exclude. If you didn't bring one, it's okay. And if they refuse, we're willing to say, we'll just stand outside. Here's our number, call us, and we'll do a phone conversation. We don't want to exclude you, but we're asking that you stay out of our space, but we'll still serve you in a different way. So we're trying to find ways around that and set an example where we can.
And it can be done kindly.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are several businesses that are requiring face masks. Like, my business isn't open to the public anyway, so it would be irrelevant. But for a lot of businesses, when I'm walking in, like, lumber stores, dry cleaner. I went into a dry cleaner the other day and I had to have a mask on. So there are some companies that are taking that precaution usefully.
Mm-hmm.
I would just note, again, as I kind of always do, on behalf of the businesses, to be very careful. You need to protect your staff and your customers so that you don't have to close down again, because that would only hurt you more economically. At the same time, there are lawyers out there who are looking for these ADA issues and will and have sued businesses for making it mandatory that people wear a mask. You can post, and I think you should post, that masks are mandatory. But if somebody walks into your establishment and is not wearing a mask, you can kindly ask them to put one on. But you may not ask, if they say they have a health condition or they can't wear one, you cannot take it any further. You cannot ask what health condition. You cannot, you could, but you're at risk of a lawsuit in regards to that. So I would just advise people to be careful, be cautious, look out for your employees, your customers, but also, look out for your business as a whole as well, and realize that there are those ADA rules and HIPAA laws in effect. So Vince? Oops.
Yeah, I was listening this morning, and I believe the N95 mask is more of your protection as well as the person in front of you, right? I mean, this cloth ones is mostly for the person outside of you. And correct me if I'm wrong, Beth. You may know more about that than I do. Okay. I think it's starting to come down to, it's going to be an individual's responsibility to take care of themselves. But even if you go to a restaurant, I mean, they were talking this morning, it's, just by eating, or somebody comes in, it can go through the filtration system. So, that gets spread around, or wherever you're at indoors, no matter at what store. So now that becomes, it's not the person in front of you, you got to start taking care of yourself. And that's going to be your choice. So, I mean, that's at least how I'm seeing that as, what other option do you have other than not going out?
Thank you.
Oh, and what, just as kind of off topic. So with Rob, with Boomers shutting down, are they planning on just letting the weeds grow there and kind of just letting it be a ghost town, or are they going to flatten it? Any idea?
Yeah, it sounds good. A ghost town. We'll just let kids play paintball randomly in there. Maybe just
Yeah,
just
big
small
great
Seattle.
October.
collect graffiti. You know, it sounds good. We'll do
We'll call
that.
it Midi Seattle.
Yeah, that's right. Lawlessness. Our understanding is that a developer's looking, the owner is looking to develop it in some manner. So they've only had an intro conversation with us to find out kind of what could be built there. But it's early, but certainly Boomers is not coming back. And you know, I don't think the highest and best use for the owner would be to put another amusement park there. So they'd be looking at something else. I think from a city perspective, we're always on the look for a hotel. That's a good use of some of the space for revenue for the city, and just a nice clean use of visitors that come in, use our restaurants, and then go home. So it's would be something we'd want to look at as one of the ideas. It is a larger space, so it could have other things as well. But it's early on, but certainly the owner's looking.
And just looking forward, there's multiple owners in that triangle.
Yes.
And some developers maybe, we don't know this for sure, but maybe approaching other owners to see if they could do something bigger there in that triangle.
Very good. Is there any other questions?
Looked like John had a question.
Go
I
ahead.
don't have a question. I just have a comment, and it's not completely COVID related. I participated in the protest that took place in Fountain Valley, and I just wanted to commend the city on how well they handled that, and the police department just did an incredible job of staying out of the way, and that certainly went a long way to tamp down any animosity that would have been in there. A lot of ugly things were being said, and you know, I think it's important to let the people say those things. I'm a total hands-off guy when it comes to the First Amendment like that. So I think the police just did an incredible job. So they need to be commended for what they did and how they did it. And thank you to the city for what you guys did. I think it really was good for the protesters. I think they felt heard, and good for the city, because they didn't burn anything down.
And just so you know, John, based on advice from people in the city and our police department, all the elected officials, it was suggested that we not appear.
Yeah, I think that was a great idea. I mean, I think it was done well. I think it was challenging because a lot of the, probably 2/3 of the protesters weren't wearing masks, and they were bunched pretty tightly, especially during the beginning, the middle, and the end. The walking was kind of a single file thing, but I was surprised we didn't have some big spike in the COVID thing, because they were just climbing all over each other. So,
well,
I walked with them the whole way, and it was nice.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and it was, we did strategize on how best to handle that, and so we did have a very light presence on the park, and we had 40 officers all holed up in the council chambers waiting in case something got worse. But we didn't want to have that presence visible, because we wanted the assumption is it's peaceful until proven otherwise. And
Sure.
so I think that's how we want to handle these things, instead of assuming out of the gate something's going to go wrong. And so we want to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Well, my hat's totally off to you guys. You did a great job. Proud of you.
And when I heard them gathering on the corner of Brookhurst and Edinger, which is almost my backyard, I climbed up the ladder at my wall and watched from a distance.
Very good. Thank you, guys. Thank you, John. And thank you, Rob and Cheryl, for everything that you do, for joining us today. I am going to allow our sponsor, who is with us, Lene, to close out the meeting.
Hi, everybody. I just echo the sentiments that everybody shared. Thank you so much, Mayor Cheryl and Rob, for your transparency and your leadership. It truly shows in the face of this pandemic, the city has not skipped a beat and has remained safe. And even for us through permitting, you know, you guys are still absolutely available, all of staff. So thank you, thank you. I know we had a safety message in the beginning or in the middle of the program, so I will continue to stress the safety of calling 811 for you dig, and also with the Mylar balloons. We're all in this together, and also just to practice social distancing and your masks, because you know, the more we remain safe, the more we can continue to open our businesses and get back to normal. So thank you again, Mayor Cheryl and Rob. Always a pleasure hearing from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lene. Appreciate you.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 11 a.m. for our third and final part of our State of the Pandemic series, where we will be talking about the financial outlook and where we go from here. So thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you.
Done. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all the show.
See y'all soon.
Be healthy and safe.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everybody.